using transparency and the color picker in Illustrator. So in Illustrator we have opacity, just like we do with other programs. And when I mean opacity, I'm meaning how the color is opaque, or the area is opaque or transparent. So to start, I'm going to open up my transparency panel, navigate up to Window, and find Transparency. I'm going to open and drag this one over so we can see it and focus on it. So let's rearrange here for a moment. I'm going to turn off my current layer and open a second layer here, my circles layer, which is made up of 3 sublayers. These are paths, the sublayers, which are 3 circles. So if I choose to color these a specific, just random color here, let's just do a yellow and a light green and a light blue. And I'm going to select all 3 of them by clicking and dragging a marquee selection. And because they don't have a common color, I get a question mark in the fill. But they do have a common stroke, and so I do see that they all have a black stroke. I'm going to create a none so that that doesn't interfere with our effect here. So in the transparency panel, I can choose to either click and utilize a slider, or I can enter in a number in my opacity field. This, remember, 100% opacity means it's 100% there. Let's do this on the green. So it's 100% for the opacity. It's fully there. Now if I were to take this opacity slider and drag it all the way down to 0, it will be fully transparent. So I don't see any of it. It's still there, and I just moved it by accident, but it does not have any the opacity to it. So it's kind of a opacity versus transparency. They are opposites. Okay, so it does work in percentages. So if I say I want 50%, type 50. I'm going to press Tab to apply it, and there you go. So that's the transparency. Pretty simple. Now the second thing that is in this transparency panel is a blending mode, and blending mode basically are a bunch of preset filters. That's really what they are, and it varies on each one of these how they blend with the underlining objects. So it's really a trial and error when you work with them, and a lot of experimentation, because different colors are going to give you different effects. Now you can understand the theory behind many of these. One of the most common, or what a lot of authors say the most essential of the blending modes, is actually multiply. So if you locate multiply, it's up here towards the top. Multiply now gives a really interesting effect, and if I go and turn on my other layer here, my blending modes, and I'm actually going to take this blue circle, let's turn off the green, and we'll turn off, well, we can bring the yellow with as well. What we're going to do is I'm going to put these on top of the blending modes. So let's click and drag this layer up above the blending modes layer. Now we see them on top, and you can see what's happening already with my blue that has the multiply applied to it. So if I, let's turn on the green, and you can just see what happens here. So this is the transparency. This is where it has 50%, either you could say 50% transparent or 50% opaque. The blue here has the multiply blending mode effect applied to it, and this actually is really a cool thing. So where there is white, as you can see in this checkerboard below, it goes as its normal color. And if I turn this off, you can see there's no change in the white area. So where there's white, when we have the blending mode of multiply applied, there is no change. Where it overlaps another color, and let's just drag this so we can get it right on top of, it darkens. There's a mixture happening. So this blue is mixing in with the pink, and you get a little bit of a darker where they overlap. And then if you look in the black, where there's black, it's black. So the analogy that's given with this sometimes, and I'm going to turn this one to multiply now as well. The analogy is if you have spilt something on a tiled floor. Say this is some yellow lemonade that I've spilt on my wonderful tiled floor that's in my kitchen. Where the white tiles, I see the yellow lemonade. Black, I can't see the yellow because the black is what I see. And where there's pink tiles, I get a mixture because those colors are sort of mixing. So that's the blending modes. And again, you play with them and experiment, really a trial and error. Now, if we look at colors a little bit, we utilize our swatches. Let's put this back down here away for now. We're done with this for the moment. Our swatches panel, and some of you may be utilizing the color to actually mix some of your colors. So whichever way you're doing it, you can go in and do more detail by getting to the color picker. And to open up our color picker dialog box, basically I double click either the fill or the stroke button. I'm going to double click my fill, and you can do that either in swatches, in color, or over here in the toolbar. All right, so here's the color picker. So the color picker is just similar to what you would see in Photoshop if you've utilized this in Photoshop. We've got our different color models here, the HSB, hue, saturation, brightness, RGB, red, green, blue. We have our hex or hexadecimal number. This would be utilized on the web. And then we have CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. This is for print. Okay, so we can utilize these different color models, or we can go out and drag. Now we have a spectrum. It's basically the color wheel that's been cut and flattened out into a strip. And you'll notice on my hue that it's from 0 to 360 degrees. Think of the color wheel, walking around the color wheel. That's measured in degree, and that's how we get that. So the saturation, of course, is the intensity. And we see this out here in this preview as well. I'll show you in a moment how we can change our saturation and our brightness. But if you know that you want to have a specific saturation or intensity, it would be posted here. If I did 0 for saturation, I'm basically going to get white or a grayscale value. I'll go back up to 100% saturated, and I'm pressing my tab key to go from box to box. Now the brightness is the degree of brightness, with 100% being the highest degree of brightness. So when we look over here in our area that we can click and drag, you can see that the color that I had defined is at the bottom here, and my newly defined color is on the top. But when I drag around, you can see these numbers are all changing, and I actually have some out of gamut warnings that may pop up here. This one specifically is out of gamut for the web. The web will not like this color, so you can click on the little box and it will bounce to a color that will be nicely accepted by the web. So anyway, we have an area here. But now when you watch, as I drag left to right or top to bottom, I change. The color is determined by my slider here on the right. So if I go into my red range, I'm either, kind of up here at the top, but this doesn't look red because I've changed my saturation and brightness. So as I move left to right, basically I'm changing my saturation. And if I bounce at the very top so I keep everything else consistent, watch my saturation right here. Saturation is 0. Saturation is 100%. So left to right is saturation. Top to bottom or up and down is brightness. So here is 100% saturated because I'm all the way to the right, and 100% brightness because I'm all the way to the top. And I'm actually outside because that means I'm actually at the very edge I can be. Now if I click and drag down, my saturation will remain the same, but my brightness decreases. And without any brightness, you're going to get black. So 0 brightness and actually 0 saturation is black. 100% saturation, 100% brightness is your full hue color, and that would be at the top right of this color area. So that's how you use the color picker. So utilizing your colors, utilizing the transparency panel, and the blending modes, all really great ways to play with color in Illustrator.